Rogue One, a Star Wars story, stands out as perhaps the most divisive Disney Star Wars films. It brims with potential that made it to the screen, but stumbles in key areas along the way. Stunningly shot by doomed cinematographer Greg Fraser, the film boasts an emotional, unforgettable ending. Cassian Andor and his loyal droid companion, K2SO, have proven to be enduring favorites. However, the film is weighed down by a sluggish midsection and a somewhat unsurprised protagonist in Jyn Erso. These elements, and the spirited debate they've sparked, have become part of the film's legacy within the Star Wars fandom. For years, fans have speculated about a possible alternate edit of the film, one that might bring new depth to its already considerable strengths. The film's production is famous for Gareth Edwards' initial direction, followed by 5 weeks of reshoots led by Tony Gilroy to strengthen Gary Whitta's script.
So I'm the story consultant working with them across the whole series, helping them figure out the story.
The first trailers and TV spots featured a wealth of intriguing footage that hinted at scenes that ultimately didn't make the final cut. The big question remains, was the version released in theaters the best possible edit? To answer this, let's take a closer look and uncover the story behind the changes. Ever since the original Star Wars was released, fans have poked fun at one of the story's biggest puzzles. Why would the Empire build a Death Star with a massive design flaw that could be destroyed with one well-aimed shot? Rogue One steps in to explain, but really, this plot hole was never an issue. That critical exhaust port, taking it out was practically impossible. A 1 in a million shot that only a Force-sensitive pilot could pull off. Remember, Luke's first attempt failed, and it took a Jedi's precision to hit the mark. This mission wasn't just tricky, it was almost certain death. By the end, the Rebel fleet was down to a few fighters, and even as Tarkin was warned about the Death Star's vulnerability, he scoffed, convinced the Rebels had no chance. This arrogance captures the Empire's pride, just as Vader warns them earlier not to be too impressed by their technology. Whether Rogue One was meant to fix this plot hole or not, the story of the Rebels stealing the Death Star plans had always felt like it could make an epic movie. In fact, George Lucas himself toyed with the idea years ago.
Got a plan for 7, 8, and 9, which is the end of the trilogy.
During the production of Revenge of the Sith, he envisioned a live-action Star Wars show set between the prequels and the original trilogy. This inspired visual effects supervisor John Knoll.
Star Wars, and that was my first real exposure to computer graphics. Interested in computer graphics, it wasn't something I pursued until I came to ILM.
To pitch an episode about rebels taking on the Death Star plans. Knoll named it Destroyer of Worlds, but he soon realized it didn't fit the show's theme, which was more about the Empire's control and political intrigue. Though the series was ultimately scrapped, Knoll held on to the concept. Years later, Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm opened the door. Kathleen Kennedy, now Lucasfilm's head, expressed interest in standalone stories beyond the Skywalker saga. Knoll knew this was his shot to revive Destroyer of Worlds. He repitched it, inspired by the classic line in A New Hope's opening crawl about rebel spies stealing the Death Star plans. With Disney's approval, Gareth Edwards, fresh off the success of Godzilla, was brought in to direct.
I swore, probably words I couldn't repeat if children are watching. I was kind of very surprised.
Yet when Edwards delivered his first cut, Disney executives felt the film lacked the punch of The Force Awakens. Given that Rogue One was the first of the new anthology series, Disney needed it to succeed. A flop could kill the idea of future spin-offs altogether, as later proven with Solo, so their concerns weren't without merit. This led to Tony Gilroy, known for the Bourne series, stepping in to oversee major rewrites, reshoots, and bring the film closer to Disney's vision of success. One of the boldest choices in Rogue One was the decision to kill off its main characters. Originally, though, the plan was for Jyn and Cassian to survive. Director Gareth Edwards initially assumed Disney wouldn't allow an entire main cast to meet their end. In the first draft, Jyn and Cassian were meant to be rescued by a rebel ship, whisked off the planet to a rendezvous with Leia's vessel with Darth Vader closed in. Vader's Star Destroyer would then have attacked the rebel ship carrying Jyn and Cassian, putting them in a frantic race to transfer the stolen Death Star plans to Leia's ship. Their ship would eventually be destroyed by Vader, leaving the audience to assume they had made it, only to reveal an escape pod floating amidst the wreckage, a hint that they'd survive. This callback to The Empire Strikes Back, where Han Solo uses the same tactic, would have provided a classic Star Wars twist. However, when Disney executives and Kathleen Kennedy reviewed the script, they all felt that the story called for a more final and emotional ending for the heroes. Much to Edwards' relief, they agreed the characters should make the ultimate sacrifice, since they didn't appear in A New Hope. This change was decided before filming began, though many other edits were introduced during reshoots. The most memorable addition? Darth Vader's fierce rampage through the rebel soldiers to reclaim the Death Star plans. Surprisingly, this iconic scene wasn't initially part of the plan. It was suggested late in production by the film's editor, Jabez Olson, who felt that Vader needed one more powerful moment. About 4 months before release, Olson pitched the idea to Kennedy, who loved it. Within 2 weeks, Edwards was back at Pinewood Studios, directing the new Vader sequence. In crafting the scene, the team brainstormed wild ways for Vader to display his mastery of the Force, but Edwards ultimately chose a more grounded approach, showcasing a greatest hits moment for the Sith Lord, while staying true to his on-screen persona. The sequence even gave Edwards a cameo in the film, where he played a rebel soldier pulling a lever to launch the plans to safety, securing his place in Star Wars canon. Initially, however, this scene would have been entirely different, focusing on Admiral Raddus and his Mon Calamari crew, evacuating the ship while the Death Star's shadow ominously filled the screen above them, a grim reminder of their grim situation. In this alternate take, the crew would share one last determined look before focusing on their mission, ultimately securing the plans but sacrificing themselves in the process. The trailers for Rogue One offer glimpses of moments that never made it to the final cut, like Darth Vader aboard the Death Star in a tense conversation with Tarkin and Krennic. This brief exchange would have emphasized the power dynamics among the Empire's highest ranks, hinting at Vader's unique position between Krennic's ambitions and Tarkin's pragmatic ruthlessness. Another striking moment in the trailers showed Jyn and her team sprinting across the beaches of Scarif, dodging blaster fire. Originally, the Scarif transmission tower was set apart from the main base, meaning that Jyn, Cassian, and the others had to escape the base and make a risky run across the beach to reach it. Director Krennic was even shown chasing them, ramping up the stakes of their mission. However, Disney ultimately decided the sequence made the film too long, so the solution was to place the tower directly in the base, cutting the entire beach sprint and reshooting the action at the tower. One of the most iconic shots from the trailer depicted Jyn limping forward on the tower platform, coming face to face with a TIE fighter. Fans eagerly awaited this standoff, but the scene never appeared in the movie. It was created purely for the trailer to drum up excitement, with the TIE fighter added digitally by the marketing team. Several character introductions were also changed. In the first cut, the story jumped from a prologue of young Jyn to an abrupt introduction of her as an adult, in a scene many found too flat. To make Jyn's entrance more compelling, the team added scenes of her imprisoned and then escaping her captors. They also introduced Cassian and Bodhi in new scenes, to better establish their backstories and create a tone that was darker and more intense than typical Star Wars fare. Cassian's scene, where he shoots an informant to protect rebel intelligence, was particularly impactful, making this movie as one that would tackle difficult moral shades. Forrest Whitaker's character, Saw Gerrera, also saw significant changes. Early trailers show him bald, delivering lines not found in the final film.
The world is coming undone. Imperial flags reign across the galaxy.
Initially, Saul was meant to caution Jyn about the dangers of rebellion, reflecting a more sympathetic, mentor-like figure. In the final cut, however, he appears as a paranoid, almost tragic figure, distrustful even of Jyn. This change recast Saul as a war-hardened radical, so committed to the cause that he no longer even trusts his own allies. For fans, these glimpses of an alternate version left lingering questions about the movie's original direction. Gareth Edwards remained involved until the end, but Tony Gilroy came in to punch up the script and oversee some reshoots, including the now iconic Vader hallway scene. Edwards and Gilroy have both expressed that the final cut represents the best version of the movie, with Gilroy confident that this was the absolute best possible version that could be made. Together, they shaped a film that balances the gritty stakes of the rebellion with the epic, unforgettable moments Star Wars is known for. making Rogue One a cinematic entry worthy of its place in the galaxy. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Director's Cut for more great content.